Hi, Megan. Welcome to Funnel Vision Podcast. We are thrilled to have you here on our podcast, sharing your expertise and tips and sales advice with our community of sales professionals.
Good morning, Alana. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we'll just jump right in. First question. What is the one game-changing tactic that you rely on to build strong client relationships?
Sure. I love this question. I think it's a great one. I think the biggest kind of game changer tactic that I have employed to build strong client relationships is proactive value delivery. And what I mean by that is consistently bringing insights, solutions, or opportunities, to my clients before they even ask for them, right? So once I had made the transition of moving out of like ad sales and into longer sales cycles, I learned that instead of just reacting to a client's needs, that I needed to stay ahead by deeply understanding their business, their industry trends, some of their pain points. And by doing so, it's greatly helped me. Some of the key things that I look at is, leveraging data. How can I continue to add value to my clients? So whether those are industry reports or, interesting stats that I might have found them or any of their competitors. It's really about trying to anticipate challenges and offer strategic recommendations or insights. I think another aspect of that is personalizing engagement. And this might sound kind of rudimentary, but I feel like as salespeople, sometimes we have the habit of thinking about quantity over quality. So every touch point should really feel tailored and not templatized. And then ultimately positioning myself as an extension of their team and not just a vendor. I want my clients to see me as a trusted advisor who genuinely, wants to contribute to the success of their business. And, when clients can see that I am invested in their long-term growth and not just the next deal, I think it's really helped them to stay engaged and for me to build and deepen the partnership because they know that they can trust me.
Yeah, I think all of that makes so much sense. And like you said, this may be rudimentary. So much in sales is really that like going back to the basics. Like people, I think,
Mhm.
complicate things so many times. And a lot of what you're saying is that it really is like understanding your client, understanding what their needs are, being proactive and understanding that, making sure that your touch points and engagements are not just, like templates, but here's a valuable piece of advice that I found or a great article I thought you'd be interested in and really providing that value. So I think that makes a lot of sense and I love that.
Yeah, because I always want to be considered a strategic advisor to them. And again, not just an order taker. I want to continually add value and deepen that relationship. And doing those things has really helped me in my career and really helped me to foster lasting relationships.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What is the biggest or the best piece of sales advice that you've received and how has it changed your approach?
I remember exactly the person who told me this too, and it was just shut up and listen. Really, earlier in my career, I thought that sales was all about talking, about pitching. Could I fill that half hour with persuading, with pushing them to adapt my product? But what I really didn't understand at that time is real sales leadership is about understanding, right? It's when I started to listen more than I spoke, when I started to prepare properly and ask those open-ended questions, my deals started to close faster, my relationships deepened, and my teams followed suit. So, now I coach my reps to ask the right questions and then be quiet, right? Let the customer tell us exactly how to win their business.
Yeah. And that's again one of those things where it's not rocket science. It's just it's something that, but like people don't do, right? They talk too much and they're trying to sell too much, but
Mhm.
really listening to the client, listening to what their pain points are and having a good understanding and letting them tell you what their problems are, or, and kind of gives you the opportunity to then create a solution that matches their problems instead of just trying to guess of, kind of what they are.
Exactly, because I could be talking about things that are not even relevant to them. And unless I have asked those questions and I've done my due diligence ahead of time and really take some time to listen to what they're saying to me rather than just knowing my agenda going into a meeting, it's really important to have that perspective, to be able to take a step back and be quiet and just listen for a little bit to what you're hearing so that you can adjust and pivot in real time to what makes sense or what makes the best sense for the prospect.
Absolutely, for sure. And I wanted to get your kind of thoughts on AI. It's, AI is kind of everywhere now in the sales world. And how do you see it like changing the game and changing the future of sales?
Totally. I mean, AI is absolutely transforming the sales landscape for sure. And honestly, I see it as a game changer in the best way possible. I don't think it's about replacing great salespeople. I think it's about amplifying their potential, right? And making them more effective. Some of the key ways that I use AI in my day to day and some of the ways that I see it shaping the future of sales is, first and foremost, automation, more time selling, less time on administrative tasks. So AI is taking away so much of the grunt work and automating it from everything from, our CRM updates to lead scoring to AI driven prospecting. It really means that sales teams now can spend more time actually selling instead of getting bogged down by, data entry and the manual tasks. And then also providing us the ability to hyper personalize at scale. So we just talked about how important it is to make sure that we are engaging with a customer or a client on a one-to-one basis and really making that personalized. AI is helping us to understand our customers better than we ever have before, right? So with all of the AI driven insights that we can capture, we can tailor our research and really understand, predict, and be able to predict buyer behavior and engage prospective clients with the right message at the right time. And before this was always manual, but now we have data backed precision to be able to rely on. And I think also smarter coaching and performance optimization is awesome. I mean, having AI power our call analytics and real time coaching tools are a real game changer. Instead of waiting for feedback from your boss after the meeting or client after the meeting or the notes that you might have scribbled down, we can get now instant guidance on our tone, on our objection handling. And it's like having a personal sales coach, right? So I use Fireflies, but there's all sorts of AI, tools like Otter and Fathom and Gong. So there's lots of options. And then I think, finally, the ability to produce stronger forecasting and decision making. AI will helps us to spot trends, analyze risks, and makes data driven decisions with a level of accuracy that we just didn't have available before. And so hopefully that means fewer surprises when it comes, end of quarter. So again, I don't think that the future of sales in AI is just about more automation. I think it's about creating a more insightful and customer centric sales process. And, honestly, that's really exciting.
Yeah, that is a good overview for sure. And I agree. And for myself too, like being in sales, but also being in recruiting, there's so many tools. And then some are great, some are not so great, right? And so you have to kind of like weed through that. But like you said, using it for automation or getting insights on, on your like you said, like we use Fathom. So like getting the insights, oh, you're talking too much. Like you've just
Yeah.
monologued for 4 minutes and didn't give anybody else a chance to talk. So like things like that and like coaching tools are, are fabulous. And then, like you said too, like making sure that you're using them for those tasks that, kind of the process things, the things you can automate, but there's so much that is still has to be people driven, relationship driven, that AI can't do, and that AI, isn't going to be able to take over this part of, sales, or for us, recruiting as well, because it's very
Absolutely.
human driven. But there's so much that you can use kind of on the back end to help the processes and like you said, like understand the data and personalize things and get insights that we didn't have before.
Absolutely. I think it's just a way to help us work smarter and faster. 100%.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. What do you think is one thing salespeople should stop doing if they want to be more successful?
Yeah, I think this is another great one. It's, my response is pretty similar to the best advice that I've gotten to. I think salespeople should stop pitching too soon, right? And many reps it will jump straight into their solution, or even worse, start talking about themselves and what they can do for the prospect without truly understanding the buyer's world. So again, it's slow down, ask better questions, listen. The more that you can align with a prospect's challenges, the easier it is to position yourself as the obvious answer, right? So selling isn't telling, it's solving. So, my advice would be to talk less, listen more, and watch your sales numbers go up.
Yeah, slow down, I think I heard you say that in there. Like slow
Totally.
down. Like think about think about the client, think about the conversation, and it's not just going to this like canned pitch. It's
Hmm.
creating a solution to their problem, and you have to listen to understand that what their problems are, because they're going to tell you what their problems are, and they're not the same across different organizations, or different levels. They have different challenges. So
Yeah, I agree. And it's hard sometimes when you're newer to sales, and you have an agenda in your head, and it's hard to not go in with that agenda and try to, I've got to get to my value prop, right away, and I've got to talk about, what we did for this client or that client. But you're much too early in the discussion to start trying to prove out your value, because you have no idea what the client's needs are. So I think that's really important to stop pitching and start listening more.
yeah, I love that answer. That's absolutely. So pivoting to chat about like finding sales talent, hiring, finding sales talent is hard. Especially all salespeople are generally great at talking, and and present well and have nice personalities. So what is your like a go-to strategy that you use to spot and hire like great sales talent and kind of weed through everything to find the great ones?
Right. This is definitely an area that we could talk about for a very long time, and obviously your background as well. I think that hiring top tier sales talent is one of the most critical aspects, right, that of scaling a, high performing sales team. So, my strategy is really kind of a mixture of a cultural fit assessment and a rigorous yet efficient interview process. And when I say efficient, I mean that because I feel like the interviewing process over the past few years has really gone kind of off the deep end in terms of the amount of rounds and the time it takes to make a hire. I like to hire for mindset, not just skill set. So to me, I feel that, sales skills can be trained, but the right attitude, resilience, and coachability are much harder to teach. So I prioritize candidates, that have a growth mindset, that they're hungry for success, they're competitive, and they have strong adaptability. I like to really conduct a structured interview process by implementing like a multi-stage process that includes behavioral assessments, and that's a great way to understand a candidate's work ethics, problem solving ability, evaluate their grit, so to speak. live role plays or sales presentations, right? Because that's really a good way to get at real world selling skills and ability. And then peer interviews to definitely assess team fit, collaboration. Is it going to be a good cultural fit? And I think it's also very important for the candidate to be able to see and experience the folks that they would be working with every day, and get their feedback and their feedback. I also have a very much a referral first approach, because often, the best salespeople often know other top performers. So I like to leverage my network as much as possible, and also ensure that companies are incentivizing their employees with employee referrals, right? To tap into high quality talent that's already pre-vetted. So, as we both know, referrals go a long way in every aspect of our professional as well as personal lives. And I think those employee referrals are something that every company should be doing, and should be offering incentives to their employees to help with that hiring pool. And then I think lastly is the speed and competitiveness of your offer. And what I mean by that is, top sales talent is always in high demand. So I like to ensure a fast hiring process by detailing exactly what the steps are, the first time we talk, and then coming prepared with a competitive compensation package, so that I can close those top candidates quickly. Because I think that ultimately, hiring rock star salespeople isn't just about their experience, isn't just what we see on LinkedIn, right? It's about finding a driven, adaptable, and someone that's team oriented, who's going to align with your company culture, right? And hopefully deliver consistent, results.
Yeah. And so many things you said there. I agree with you. We could talk about this for days, especially because that's, kind of where my focus always has been in my career too. But, some of the things that you said is, I agree. It's, hiring that right person that has, if they're missing some of the skills on the job description, but they have that great attitude, they meet your company culture, they are a match with the team, they're driven, they have all of those other things, like, you can train for a lot of things. You can train for, sales skills. You can train on your, if you use a certain technology and they've not used it before, or a certain CRM. Like, I've seen clients cut people out because, like, oh, this person doesn't have experience using HubSpot. Well, they have everything else you need.
Right.
Like, you really have to take a holistic view of the person and know that, if you find that right person that has those skills, they can learn. But finding those, kind of soft skills and that driven attitude and mindset, that's hard to find, and it's hard to interview for. So when you have the right person, those things really outweigh if they're missing a very specific skill that can be trained. So I agree with all that you said, as well as all the way through, having a competitive offer. Top candidates are always in high demand, and they have choices. So making sure that you have a competitive offer, that you've kind of really understanding the candidates' motivations for why they're looking for a new role. Like, not just, it's not always money. It can be, they're looking for this opportunity, they want an opportunity to grow, they want to work remotely. There's so many different things. So kind of going through the process and understanding that, understanding the candidate, as well as kind of what their motivations are, and how that aligns with your company and what you're able to offer. So I
Absolutely.
agree with all that.
Absolutely. And I know from my past hires that I have made before that may not have been 100% to the job description based on their resume, have been some of the greatest hires that I've made, because it's, I've made the right decision in terms of really understanding what motivates them. Are they coachable? Are they adaptable? Are they open to feedback? Are they open, to working with others in a collaborative way? And so really, that's where I feel like a lot of the behavioral questions come into play too. So you can really see how a candidate would approach certain situations, what's worked for them in the past, how have they taken feedback, how have they applied it. So I think that there's really a lot of characteristics that are incredibly valuable above and beyond just what their LinkedIn or their, CV or resume may say.
Absolutely agree. So, Megan, tell us a little bit about you and your background, what you do, and where people can find you.
Sure. So I am Megan O'Rourke. I am a outsourced or fractional VP of sales with Sales Acceleration. So I work with small and medium-sized businesses to help them grow their revenue and to put the right sales processes and people in place to create a scalable and repeatable sales process. I've have over 20 years in corporate America leading large enterprise sales teams, and recently moved over to focus on my own business within the small and medium business community. And, you can find me at M. O'Rourke at salesacceleration.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Megan, for coming on. I appreciate your time and being a guest on Funnel Vision and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks so much, Alana. I appreciate your time, and this has been a lot of fun.
Yes, same. I agree.
Okay, bye bye.